So a reflection. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. It's a really nice line, but I will admit I am struggling with it these days. I like the feel of rootedness, of sensing my feet firmly on the ground, anchored into what is necessary and important and true. And I love the sense of lightness and movement and lifting my arms toward possibility and discovery. I'm also fine with the inherent physical contradiction between these two. How do you, in a strict physical sense, stay more deeply anchored somewhere and at the very same time, more ably lift yourself off into a different future? But that's fine. I'm okay with that. There's no struggle for me there. I get that the point is to continually lean into a sort of light balance or flow between those two. I think my struggle with roots hold me close and wings set me free over this past year in particular has been this: with so much influx around me, big picture and small, neither soil nor air are familiar anymore. How do I know exactly what I should hold on to and what I should let go of to best reach into the new? I won't detail the personal, professional, societal transitions playing out for me. That's not the point. You have your own list, and comparing our two lists to see whose is more objectively difficult to navigate through is the exact opposite of helpful. My purpose is not to compare myself to your fortune or misfortune, but to know where I am with my spirit in relation to my own. There's a different song than Spirit of Life that's been playing in my head these days as Owen moves closer to graduation and his next step on life's journey. It's called Kite, and it was written about 20 years ago by Bono, who is the lead singer for the band U2. It details a time when his father was dying and his girls were growing up. It centers on a kite flying outing to the beach with his kids that just didn't work out. And it reminded him of a similarly ill-fated outing with his dad decades earlier. He writes this: "In summer, I can taste the salt of the sea. There's a kite blowing out of control on a breeze. I wonder what's going to happen to you. You wonder what has happened to me. I'm a man. I'm not a child." A man who sees the shadow behind your eyes. Who's to say where the wind will take you? Who's to say what it is will break you? I don't know where the wind will blow. Who's to know when the times come around? I don't want to see you cry. And I know that this is not goodbye. So clearly and emotionally for me, there is a deep connection to our first child's transition away from our home, and it is also concurrent with my mother's own failing health. But what is particularly powerful and helpful for me about these lyrics is the part that is centered on being out of control, the kite buffeted in the breeze and not knowing which way the wind will blow. And I think it helps me lean into the core issue of my struggle with rootedness and flight these days, which I think is these three things. First, to know that I am not sure right now. I am off balance. Second, to have compassion for myself in that not knowing, even though I feel incredible responsibility for people I love dearly who are in their own transitions. And finally, to stay present in that not knowing. Some days I hang in there, many days I don't. Here's a recent example. This is just last night. We went to dinner with Owen and his best friend, along with our families, to celebrate their graduation. For me, it was disorienting to be in a restaurant, sitting so close to people, some masked, some not. So much was familiar from life 15 months ago, but it also felt completely different. Just the simple action of going out to eat had me in a maze of confusion. For Owen and his buddy, on the other hand, sitting right next to me, who had spent the pandemic in a bubble perfecting the art of grilling meat products, they spent the time thoroughly enjoying their aged ribeye steaks, the first aged ribeye steaks they'd ever had. Delicious bite after delicious bite. At the end of the song, Kite, Bono writes a brief coda. Did I waste it, he asks. Not so much I couldn't taste it. Life should be fragrant, rooftop to the basement. I love that. I'm proud of you, Oh. You're going to be just fine because you do that so well. And I love learning from you every single day.
I invite us all just to sit in a moment of reflection, and thank you, Chris, for such a powerful and meaningful reflection that I think touched all of us. So let's just let Chris's words sit with us. I think we all resonate with that disorientation, that disorienting feeling we're having around this time we're in the pandemic, where we engage in these activities that 15 months ago we took for granted, and they seem both familiar and somewhat foreign to us. And it's uneasy when something so familiar feels foreign to us, and we don't quite make it understand it, and it throws us off kilter, it throws us off balance. We can't get grounded. And I think there's a paradox in those very words. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. There's a tension in there. And like Chris, I find that a beautiful tension. It's a powerful tension. And it's so much what we are. We're grasping for the familiar, but even the familiar is unfamiliar, and we don't know how we can handle that. And we often think of roots as those foundation or those strengths. We think of trees with roots. You know, they're grounded deep in the ground, almost expanding out as far as the tree branches itself. There's almost a whole other tree under the ground, giving it strength, giving its nutrients. But we also have to think this: how do the trees deal with high winds? How do they deal with those challenges thrown at it by nature? And if you've ever seen palm trees in hurricanes, they're almost bent over at 90 degrees, but they survive, they're not uprooted. And other trees like redwoods and large forests, when there's winds, what keeps them upright from being uprooted is the bumping into other trees that keeps them upright. And I think that's a great metaphor for how community can actually support us. When we're about to tip over, there's maybe someone here that's able to grab us and keep us upright. And that idea of the palm trees bending in the hurricane winds, the roots hold them, but the tree is able to bend and adapt to the tension it's feeling with that winds. And I think that's a great metaphor for our flexibility, because it's often said that evolution is survival of the fittest, which is not quite true. We often think of the fittest being the strongest or the biggest predator. But really what evolution is about is the survival of the most adaptable and the most flexible. How can we adapt to the changes we're having? How can we adapt to environmental changes? Survival of the most flexible and the adaptable. And I think all of us over this pandemic have experienced a lot of flexibility. I want to commend this community who's basically went online in March this year, went through a candidating process with me as a minister, has welcomed a new minister in predominantly online, and we've all adapted. It's not what we want. Yes, the worship service is somewhat familiar, but it's not filling the sanctuary with people and the buzz and the atmosphere and the energy. We're not getting that, and it's hard to get that in Zoom. But as we've experienced today, we can have profoundly moving experiences in this space. And when we think about our metaphorical roots, we do need to think of roots as metaphorically, just as we think of wings metaphorically. None of us, at least as far as I can tell in Zoom, has wings. But we do, but metaphorically. So we think of wings metaphorically. We unfurl our wings means we are traveling to new adventures, as Owen is doing in the coming months. Metaphorical roots are like the story I told in the Time for All Ages, those connections to experiences, to our learnings, to our mentors, to our family, to our friends, to our teachers who have created us to be the people we are today. Those are the metaphorical roots. And of course, when we think of wings, we often think of birds and the birds leaving the nest, that courageous first step where they take that leap of faith from the nest and fly. And it's interesting to see what the mother bird does. The mother bird doesn't stay in the nest. The mother bird usually leaves. And the the chicks left behind have to fly. They've no other option. But it's interesting to see how different animals nurture creatures. I don't know if many of you saw the video. It was a contrast between dogs and cats. And I confess, I'm a dog person. And you saw this Labrador and its pup. It was trying to go down the stairs because dogs often have to learn to go downstairs because it's not easy. And the dog's nurturing it as each step they take, the Labrador mother is licking it and encouraging it. And eventually it gets down and it's a real nuzzle at the bottom of the stairs. Well, the kitten's sitting at the top of the stair and the mother cat comes up and looks at it, goes down the stairs, the kitten doesn't follow. The mother comes back up and just bats the kitten and the kitten falls down the stairs. So those are different mothering techniques and I'll let you choose your own. But you see that differently. Animals do that encouragement to it, so that's teachings in very different ways. And I think of my own family, the strength they gave me when I came over to the States at the age of 23. And, I was in Southern California and it was a huge culture shock. I mean, I had been living away from home for a couple of years, but I'd never lived outside of Scotland. I'd never lived outside of 11 miles from where my mum and dad lived. So this was a huge shock. And I remember being really confused. I mean, gas stations were just a maze of confusion for me, like how the gas pumps work. They're far more complicated in California than they are in Scotland. And I remember one time we were trying to figure out where the gas tank was in this car. We had a rental car and myself and my friend couldn't figure it out. He was from Scotland as well. And the gas attendant came out and said, "Are you guys from out of state?" And my friend turned to him and said, "Feels more like out of planet." And we really felt this idea that we were just confused because the gas tank was behind the registered license plate in the car. That's just not obvious. I can't remember, it was some old Chevrolet. And so but it really was this being totally out in this culture. And I loved it and I struggled with it at the same time. Again, that tension, these adventures when you go to a foreign land where you don't speak the language, you're both excited and vibrant and your senses are kind of heightened. And you're also kind of disheartened. You can't communicate. You don't know where to go. You order something in the restaurant and it's not quite what you thought, and you're not quite sure what you're eating. We all have these experiences, and they're both exciting and they're challenging at the same time. I think ultimately, what good roots give us is the nutrients and the strength and the foundation to be flexible, to deal with changes, to deal with challenges, to deal with those moments of confusion that we're experiencing as a culture right now. I invite us all, what do you find from your past that helps you deal with the challenges you're experiencing in life? What do you look at and connect with in your everyday life that helps you to deal with the changes that we're all experiencing? When we come back into person, we're going to have to learn how to get back into big groups again, as Chris was talking about with his dinner last night. this is something we're going to have to learn and retrain ourselves. Think of times that you've done that in the past, and how can that be helpful for you as we move forward? And the writer Adrian Rich says, no one ever told us that we need to study our lives, make our lives a study as if learning natural history or music. That we should begin with the simple exercises first and slowly go on trying the hard ones. Practicing till strength and actually become one with a daring leap into transcendence. And in fact, we can't live like that. We take on everything at once before we've even begun to read or mark time. We're forced to begin in the midst of our hardest movement, the one already sounding as we are born. We're forced to begin in the midst of the hardest movement, the one already sounding as we are born. Those are the words of Adrian Rich. What is that pull inside of you? What's that pull inside of me? What is that pull inside of all of us? That is that leap into transcendence. And what's stopping us taking that there? There's something in our spirits, in our souls, in our body that we want to let out. We want to take that step. What's stopping us? It's a beautiful reading from Life Tides by Elizabeth Tarbuck. Hollow bones, streamlined feathers, and wings shaped to push aside the viscosity of air are not what makes birds fly. Birds let go of their grasp and safe perches at the top of trees because something calls them. They unfold their untried wings to feel an unimagined power. They soar up and out and through the winter sky because an ancient longing pulls them home. Loosed from the sticky grasp of earth, free from the snarls of lesser creatures with daggers in their teeth and muscles in their legs, birds laugh upward, homeward, drawn by a calling which bids them welcome in the sky. Birds, take me with you when you go. Oh, not my lumbering body and knitted tissue, no. Take some other me with you, some invisible soul of me that hears the call you hear, that moves effortlessly with you through the bright pink silk of dawn and the warm butter spread of morning. Carry my longing to be weightless, to move as light moves, to be unseen, scattered through space and time. Teach me to trust my wings. Those are the words of Elizabeth Tarbuck. And I love that image of birds unfolding their untried wings, and I imagine it must feel a great sense of power as they learn to fly. And like birds, we have the capacity and the capability to do so much. But we do limit ourselves through unwillingness to take risks, resistance to do something different, or fear of the unknown. I think since I was 20, I've always felt too old to do whatever I wanted. It's kind of ironic. I didn't go to seminary till I was 45. And I think we all struggle with that inner critic that says we're not good enough, we're not fast enough, we're not fit enough, we're not healthy enough, we're not smart enough. And that idea that we are not good enough to be a real artist. But I think one of the ideas, creative acts that we produce in ourselves have that power to give our life meaning regardless of the quality. It's the process of engaging in a creative act. The creative act which we feel most engaged can often feel that we are guided powerfully by something outside of ourselves, and that might be the spirit of life. I also love that other part in Elizabeth Tarbuck's poem where she says, it's not, don't take me with you, but not my lumbering body and knitted tissue, no. Take that invisible aspect of me, my soul, my spirit, and help it to take flight in the world. trust my internal pull and call it to adventure. And I invite each of us, if we try and connect with the spiritual part of ourselves, that non-material part, those ideals, those values, those longings, these callings that we have within ourselves that are innate. How do you want to answer? How do you want to respond to that now? Do you have the strength in this religious community, the roots, to take that next step into that spiritual journey? And if not, how can we do that? Because I ultimately believe that our religious community, each of us should have a spiritual growth plan, a faith development plan to help us to take that next step. It's not going to be the same for each of us. Some of us might be dealing with facing the last years of our life. Some of us, like Owen, are off onto a new adventure. Some of us are dealing with life transitions. We're on different things. But are we willing? Do we have an intentional plan? Do we have the support of a small group, of the larger group, of your minister to help you explore where you want to go spiritually in the future? We can provide the roots and give you a path forward to unfurl your wings. Is there a safer community you have to take those risks with? And I think of that roots hold me close, wings set me free. I always think of that idea of balance, where you have one foot, you're grounded solidly, and the other foot, you're out exploring. Think if you're in the beach, when you're turning over shells. You've got one foot solidly planted and the other's out feeling the way. Maybe you test the water with your toe. Is it hot? Is it cold? Well, this is California. No, ocean's never warm. But if you get into a bath, you often dip your toe in with one foot. And I love to think of that. The roots hold us close. It's that foundational foot, and the other foot's out there exploring. I think that's how we need to think of that. Roots hold me close. It's not a either or, it's a both and. We need the roots that are strong, and we need that foot out there testing, exploring. And I want to take that metaphor into what's your spiritual life? What grounds you spiritually, and where do you want to grow spiritually? Because they're not separate, they're connected. You will grow from where your strength is. And I know this roots hold me close, wings set me free, it can seem paradoxical. You're saying two things, and it is a paradox, and it's a necessary paradox. And the idea of being grounded on one foot, it's like we're not taking this leap of faith recklessly. We're grounded, we're reckoning, and yes, we know we want to go there, and we're going from a position of strength, not a position of instability. We are stable, yet searching, grounded, yet still flying. By being grounded in our roots, then we can trust our wings. Our roots and our wings can animate ourselves in powerful ways. And I'll leave you with these two questions. What do each of us need to unfurl our wings? And what does UUFRC need to unfurl our communal wings to become the community that we all feel called to be, that we desire to be in San Mateo County?